to pull away with the win after a big halftime lead, huge halftime performance in the first half from Nebraska. It's nice to be on the opposite side of those because there's unfortunately been a few games of those this year for Nebraska on the losing effort where you knew they were going to have a tough time coming back. Michigan did make a little bit of a run, I think, to cut it. Close to 15 or around there in the second half, a little bit of an 8-0 run, about 7 or 8 minutes left. But ultimately, Nebraska gets the win on a big first half effort. They end up leading by the end of the first half, 45-25, and that was only due to an 8-0 run by Michigan at the end of that half. So Nebraska had an even bigger lead on Michigan. Very interesting as we go through this as well, because Nebraska started their big lineup once again. Josiah Allick right in the middle of it. And when I say the middle, I mean middle of the court, jumping for the ball. But and sometimes I was kind of going back and forth with myself. Now, tonight it makes sense because Michigan has some big men. So to go with the big lineup makes sense. But, we've been talking on this show and throughout the week if it makes sense to start Allick other than the jump ball. And he really energized them to begin this game. Keisei Tamanaga started getting going, and therefore the Pinnacle Bank Arena crowd was going up, but it really opened up some spacing, pretty passing, and you could just see the effort. I mean, they've talked about it in their pre-games and their post-games. It's kind of frustrating at times to hear Coach Hoiberg say, yeah, this game's really going to come down to rebounding and turnovers. And then Nebraska has problems on the road with rebounding and turnovers. Today, they won some of those differentials, as Strick likes to put it. So big win once again for Nebraska, 79-59. Continue that undefeated streak at home, and now move up to 17-8 overall, 7-7 in Big Ten play. Strick, what are your initial thoughts from a gigantic win? Some label it must win, especially considering where Michigan was coming in to the Big Ten in the Big Ten standings. Excuse me.
I'm going to differ a little bit from you, not in a bad way, but I agree with you. As I was looking at it initially, being that Michigan, they're pretty perimeter dominated outside of Big Reed Jr. They're pretty perimeter dominated, more so for forwards, in the style that they play, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought maybe no Allick, but to me, it looked like the game plan early on was similar to the one that they had against Northwestern, which was we're going to pound it inside on a lot of high-low action and get Allick the ball and let him get off to a good start. What I appreciate about Allick is not having a good game last game, 0 rebounds, and he seemed like he was challenged tonight. So you saw him get off to an early start on getting rebounds, getting after it, attacking. He looked very aggressive, ended up 7 for 10 for the night. But guess what? Led the team in rebounds. So this is why you know that there was a discussion that was made about this group and the effort that they gave while they were on the road. So the effort was great. The numbers, the passing, the making the pass, it was meaningful extra passes. It wasn't the extra pass just to make it, but it was the extra pass for the better or the greater shot than it was necessarily for just the ability to get a shot. So I love that about it. It was, it was good to see aggressive guys like, coming off the bench. Jamarcus Lawrence still struggled a little bit, but, got after it on the rebounds, pushed the ball, pushed the tempo. And one thing that they did tonight that I hadn't seen in a while, and I'm going to get into a few other deep things about what I saw, but it was deep probes. It was turning the corner, getting deep, and then being able to find those trail guys. CJ Wilcher a couple times, Mass. There were some big threes that opened the lead up early, but a lot of it came from deep penetration and finding those trail guys for either the shot or the greater pass to the next shot in which they made.
That's interesting. I could agree with you too. I mean, Nebraska definitely took advantage of their size down low and ended up winning this game with points in the paint, 38-18. And it was pretty tough early on for Michigan to keep up with them. And part of that too was offensive rebounds, which has been a problem, of course, on Nebraska's side's giving those up. But they were fighting for them early on, and part of that is going low. And if you miss, you Allick and Mass both had this in this case where they were fighting for the rebound. And able to put it back in. But yeah, I mean, it was absolutely, I think, critical for Allick to have a big game As we were kind of mentioning, coming off maybe one of his tougher performances as a Husker and coming out with one of his better performances as a Husker, 16 points, 8 rebounds, and again, on the attack. How much do you want him to be?
8 assists.
Well, that was Mass. Mass had 8 assists.
8 assists.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're talking about Alec.
Alec, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, and I wanted to ask you, too, because Alec, everybody kind of goes through their streaks, and he's got a certain role, right? He averaged 7 and 5, and I think that's kind of more what you expected. I mean, he had that by the 10-minute mark of the first half. Is this one of those nights where he's just kind of hot and doing the right things, or do you think this is something we can see a more of a role from Alec moving forward, or is this just his night?
It was doing the right things, but I'm gonna tell you what I sense. I can't tell you because I didn't go to practice, but I can sense that this happened. There was discussion about limitations. We don't want you dribbling from this spot to this spot. You catch it in the post, 1-2 dribbles, attack, and go up. Because that's what really happened. You saw there wasn't a lot of trying to do sometimes the stuff that Alec would do, similar to what Mass did tonight in one instance where they were going to a dribble handoff. You knew that they were switching. You fake and kind of drive. They don't want that from him. He doesn't have good control of his body and his dribbling at the same time. I hate to say that, but that's the case. It looked like there was limitations, and it looked like it was catch, rip, to go to finish, and that's what he was comfortable with. And it was a lot more fluidity to it as opposed to looking awkward in a lot of the moves that he was making in previous games.
And we did see, once again, Jamarcus Lawrence come off the bench. He came off the bench quite early in this game. Like you said, not the best shooting night, 2 of 9, but was in hit 1-3, but was 1 of 5 from beyond the arc. So that actually lowered his 3-point percentage on the season. But 6 rebounds. Is that role off the bench, you think, is something, because Fred Hoiberg had talked about it and said that's something he kind of embraced. He liked it, coming out of playing off one of his better games of the year against Northwestern. Do you continue to kind of bring him off the bench? He seems to be like I said, liking it, but it's not an automatic fix to how you fit in the team, right? Sometimes it can give you the juice, but I suppose he did a good job of limiting turnovers, just 1 turnover tonight. But I think a lot of people were probably hoping to see him repeat the type of performance he had in the past game. And despite a big win, I'm critiquing and nitpicking right here, but for Jamarcus Lawrence, it does, it's not always as simple as just find a new role. He's got to find a better way to contribute, I think.
Well, some things that you can find when you have a struggling player. Like, let me give you an example. In baseball, what they do, if you're a 1 to 5 hitter in the lineup, what they'll do is they'll move you down and they'll allow you to kind of see more pitches, see the game go, just relax your mind. That can happen when you come off the bench. You kind of have an idea of when you're going to go into the game. You allow the game to see things developing, see how things are going, see how the team is playing you, see what they're doing on defense, see, where there are opportunities and things will present themselves, see who's hot. There's a lot of things you can observe that you don't necessarily get to do when you're in a starting role. But it allows you to relax a little bit more, kind of get into a little bit more comfort, and then come in and hopefully contribute.
And as we go through the numbers too, I mean, we talk about it, and it's notable here. Nebraska 43 rebounds, actually wins the rebounding battle against Michigan. That's not something we've been able to say. Also, 16 offensive rebounds. Now Michigan, they did get 18 offensive rebounds. So again, that's too much for Nebraska to give up. Thankfully, they were competing on their side, and there was. I mean, it wasn't all just boxing out from the big guys. I think there was one stretch play where we saw Lawrence get knocked down and end up with the ball. And then, on that same possession, Hoiberg misses his 3. He tracks it down in the corner and saves the ball up top. I think
they were winning the 50-50 thing, the balls, the possessions. They were hitting the floor. They were being active. So yeah, but here's the thing, Bach. Let's just be honest, you and I right here. If they would play with that same intensity on the road, and I'm not talking about just for 5 minutes, they would play that same intensity down this next stretch. They've got a chance to do something special. Here's why I say that. This is what you're looking at. You're looking at a large grouping of Big Ten teams all the way up to Illinois, and they've got tough games still left in front of them. You've got probably one of the easier schedules outside of, I think, Wisconsin, which has a very similar schedule to you. But you literally, if you go on a run right now, Bach, you can look at getting up to as far as number 2 in the conference, which remember, doing something special. When we were in this position last time, Bach, football season. When they were sitting right there with an opportunity to do something special, and they just weren't able to. And I'm talking about special, not just going 6-6. I'm talking about doing something special.
5-3 with, what was it, 3 games left? Or
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. With not crazy teams. It wasn't like you had to play Penn State. Wasn't like you had to play Michigan. Wasn't like you had to play, you know what I'm saying, Ohio State. You were looking at a team that you could have beaten, won last game in Iowa. Who else?
Wisconsin in there. Maryland was one of them. Yeah. Started with Michigan State on the road.
Yes.
Yeah.
All that were struggling. That was what you had in front of you. Right now, Nebraska finds himself in a very similar situation. But just look at it. Just look at it, who they got in front of them. Next up is Penn State. You've got a whole week off before you even look at Penn State. And they're at the bottom tier of the conference. They're coming into your home. You're going to be able to get healthy and in good shape going into that game. You've got Michigan again, bottom feeder team. You got Rutgers on a revenge game coming in. And then Minnesota.
And
you've got
another revenge.
You've got 2 revenge games, 2 teams you should beat. And I think you also got Indiana?
Yeah, yep. Who they already beat. But this one will be again on the road.
So you've got to find a way to get a couple. I see your opportunities at Ohio State. I see your opportunity is with Michigan. And then I think that puts you in a great position as long as you take care of home. Don't fall asleep against any of those teams that are coming in. You can't fall asleep against Rutgers. You can't fall asleep against Penn State next week. You better come and play and take care of home and go and get a couple on the road.
Yeah, I think I was counting. I think there's 9 teams between 5 and 7 wins in the Big Ten right now. So
two games, a stretch, a run. If you can run off 5 out of 8, 5 out of 7, you can put yourself up into that top tier and look at a bye game.
Now, they do get a week off. They finally, they do get the midweek off when I think they're the last team in the Big Ten to do so. You mentioned their next game next Saturday against Penn State, 11 a.m. on BTN. Do you play this good and that close, maybe again, and they've said it a few times, so credit to Coach Hoiberg for getting these guys going. Again, maybe your best half of the season, one of your better games of the season. Do you think a week off helps now? I mean, they're tired, obviously, but you're coming off a hot game.
Let me tell you what I would have done. Before this game, with the intensity that they played, I would have been like, you've got a week off. I would have been like, if I see these metrics, if you guys give me what you got, and it looks like you're giving me the effort, I'm talking about rebounds. If you win certain areas, I'm giving you 2 days off. Like, I would put the onus on them. Like, I would have given them that to let them leave it all on the floor.
Dangle a carrot in front of them.
Yeah, that's what Austin said. Dangle a carrot. I would have dangled a carrot. You got 2 days off. But then when you come back, you're going to get after it. I need you to get after it. You're going to have good Super Bowl off. Enjoy Monday. Tuesday, we coming back ready for business. Mm-hmm. And if you're coming back slouching and slacking, Wednesday, we going again. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of, and I put the onus on them. I put the onus on their leadership. That's what I would have done.
Well, another interesting part of this game, too, is just the fact that Michigan, it's hard to, I guess, verbalize, how big of a test Michigan was, because people put this in the must-win game category, which if you're Nebraska, obviously now you're back to 500 in conference play. You would have lost a home game to the worst team in the Big Ten, but they did just come off the victory over Wisconsin. All that being said, they've lost 10 of the last 12 games. Juwan Howard's going to have a hard time sticking around there in Ann Arbor. And they play without their leading scorer on the road, as they have since, I think, January 10th. It looks to be maybe something to do with his grades. You keep him at home, plays the home games. But so it's another one of those situations. And it kind of reminded me, of course, of the Minnesota game where they lost their leading scorer earlier in that game. This one on the road, obviously. And that's what led to the frustration, along with a great half of Nebraska and allowing Minnesota to get back into it. And they lost that game, and that was very disappointing. How as a player, Strick, I mean, you're up 45-25. Maybe that little run by Michigan there at the end might have helped them a little, helped get you going a little bit. How do you get the juice to come back for the second half after, you basically outside of completely falling apart, should have the win moving forward in the second half?
What team? Nebraska?
Nebraska, yeah.
That's where the carrot comes in.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you do the carrot. Because if I don't see what I want to see or need to see on these right here, on these stat sheets right here, y'all will be at practice on Monday. So I leave the onus on them to give me the effort, and they did. Obviously there was a game of runs. They had a couple. And look, the runs happen not by stupid turnovers like it's been in the past, not by dumb shots that it's been in the past, but it just happened because you missed layups and you missed a couple of opportunities. You gave them a couple of extra rebounds that maybe they shouldn't have had, a couple of and ones, and it happens. But you came back and you quieted it. Mm-hmm. You didn't let them have those extended droughts that Nebraska has had in the past. They may have a 5, and I talked about that, about having Nebraska eliminate the big runs, the 10, 11, 12-0 runs, minimize it to 5 to 6, and then squelch that, kibosh it, and then you'll get back in order.
That's why I think Alex starting the second half with the and one was so big. You just got done giving up a 12-2 run. Burnett hits that corner 3 at the buzzer. So Michigan was really 10 points better than Nebraska over 5 minutes, but Nebraska was 30 points better over the previous 16. Okay, you can live with that. But if Michigan scores first in the second half, I wonder if Nebraska tightens up a little bit. But getting the high-low with Alec, getting him the layup, he completes the and one, kind of felt like, okay, yep, we're back, we're in control. Even though Michigan went down and scored on that same possession, Nebraska scored first. And I think that set the tone for the second half that, okay, yeah, Nebraska gave up that run. It was a couple kind of garbage threes at the very end. They still count the same. But you reestablished in the second half by scoring first and really held Michigan at arm's length. That's why I think the 20-point final margin is big, because Michigan cut it to 20 at the half. So no, Nebraska didn't play as well in the second half. You would have liked them to push it back to that 25-26 mark. But if it ends up a 17, 18, 19-point game, even though it's one possession different, it just feels like you didn't do everything you could. Ending it at 20 was, hey, we kept it in cruise control. We answered everything that they wanted to do in the second half. And I think you can go home feeling a little bit better about making it look pretty enough.
What I also will say is they've been rattled. This is why Michigan threw it at them. They've been rattled by zones over the last 2 games while they were on the road. Weren't able to get really good shots. It allowed the team to either make a run, get back into it, push a lead. They didn't handle it very well. So you can tell what I love about the staff and, Fred Hoiberg and the staff is they've learned from some of their mistakes. Some, not all, but they addressed it and it looked more calm, and they were able to get good looks and good shots out of the zone for the most part, even when they recognized it was a matchup, and they were able to still run. Like, it's good recognition. Now, I'll tell you there was some bad recognition stuff, and I'll address that at another time.
I'll jump in on the zone really quick. Nebraska, when Michigan first went zone, got good looks but missed them the first few possessions, and then they settled, and then they stood. They kind of went away from it. They did better in the second half, but Strick, you and I were talking about this. Teams are going to go zone more and more often because I think once you get Nebraska in stand-around mode, they struggle to get out of it sometimes. Michigan went back to man, and Nebraska got back into movement, right? Yeah, Nebraska has some guys that can go get a bucket. Bryce Williams, Keisei Tominaga, Rink Mast. But as we saw in the first 16 minutes of the game, and as we've seen throughout the year, Nebraska is at its best when it's moving, when everyone is involved, when you don't know who it's going to be that gets the matchup, that gets the open shot. But against the zone, yeah, Nebraska did okay. They got fine looks the first few possessions, but guys were standing around. That's how Michigan got back into it on defense too, because when Nebraska stands on offense, it starts standing on defense.
Good point.
He's Austin Orman. He is Erick Strickland, the Husker Hall of Famer, longtime NBA vet, and I am Jake Bachov. And let's take a quick break. Nebraska wins this one 79-59 over Michigan Wolverines. And we'll be back with more on the Hoops Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric brings exciting career opportunities for you or someone you know. They are now hiring plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs and installers to continually build their professional team. They offer competitive pay and full benefits packages that include health, dental, vision, PTO, and 401k options. Action has created a positive team environment for over 50 years. Apply online at actionlincoln.com.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top-shelf liquor to crowd-favorite beer, Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service bumper to bumper, we'll treat your vehicle like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% off, mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
Valentine's Day is right around the corner. Stop giving your loved one the same chocolates every year and spice it up with the chocolate season. Who wouldn't appreciate handmade chocolate-covered turtles, artisan chocolates, brownies, cheesecake, fudge, caramels, bread pudding, and chocolate-covered strawberries? Should I keep going? Make the day of love special for you and your loved one you cherish the most. Get your one-of-a-kind gift that is for sure to make that person feel ethereal at the chocolate season. Located at 3855 Village Lane, next to the Williamsburg Hy-Vee, or order online at thechocolateseason.com. Get your one-of-a-kind gift today.
Okay, it's time to sell the house. How do we even begin to choose from the hundreds of realtors in town?
Easy. We make a pros list.
You mean a pros and cons list?
No, just a pros list. We need someone with pro photography to showcase the house in the best possible way, pro marketing to make sure we get maximum exposure, pro negotiations so we know we get the best price.
This is one of those times where you already know the right answer, isn't it?
You know it is. Ben Bleicher and Professional Realty Group.
Contact Ben Bleicher and the team at Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services Ambassador. Online at prg-ne.com.
Gentlemen, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Don't be that guy running to the store for flowers and a card on your way home. Hey, Rick Heyman here from Sartor Heyman Jewelers. We have great Valentine's gifts in store now. And if you spend $99, we'll throw in a free bouquet of a dozen roses. Give her what she really wants this year and let us do the rest. Sartor Heyman Jewelers, your hometown jeweler since 1905 in Lincoln and Grand Island. Online at sartorheyman.com.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric brings exciting career opportunities for you or someone you know. They are now hiring plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs and installers to continually build their professional team. They offer competitive pay and full benefits packages that include health, dental, vision, PTO, and 401k options. Action has created a positive team environment for over 50 years. Apply online at actionlincoln.com.
We are back here on the Hoops Postgame Show on 93.7 The Ticket, celebrating a Husker victory, a beatdown over Michigan 79-59 that included a 45-25 halftime lead, which, by the way, in that first half included a 29-3 run. I've seen that. You rarely see a 29-3 run. What kind of, in your guys' mind, obviously Keisei Tamanoga kind of got going in between that. The ball movement looked good, but what really sparked that run and kept Nebraska going? Because, I mean, again, I think it's easy to look at the 29, but equally as impressive is holding Michigan down to 3 points during that run and 25 at the break.
One, it was not turnovers. It was great looks. Remember, some of the things that they've struggled with, especially on the road, is you get so caught up. This is how it happens. You go into practice, you start running your motion stuff, you get comfortable, you start kind of running, flipping the ball, and it's because you're going against the scout team that's really not getting after you at the same intensity and the same speed and the same physicality that they're going to do in the game. You can see the physicality because they're bumping, grinding, guys, flailing, flopping all over the place because a lot of times they're getting grabbed. You don't really get that in practice. So those lazy passes would start to happen. They didn't really do that tonight. A couple of instances obviously ended up with a few turnovers compared to what they had when they were on the road last. So I think that's where it started. Then now you're comfortable. They didn't look sped up at all. They didn't look like they got sped up at all. They were very comfortable in running their stuff. They were focused on what they wanted to do and what they wanted to accomplish, and they executed, getting then good shots to which they were ready to shoot, and they knocked it down when they got the opportunity. That's how I think it happened.
10 assists on 17 made field goals in the first half. That's a big deal, right? Nebraska was moving. They weren't stagnant. They weren't playing ISO ball, and they passed up good shots to get great shots. You saw Gary make the kick to Mast for a 3, and then Mast returned the favor. Gary got, I don't know if it was a dunk or a layup, but Nebraska made the extra pass. It was on time, on target, some skip passes as well. So I think the ball movement was where it needed to be. I thought Michigan could have done more in terms of pressuring Nebraska's ball handlers, get up in them a little bit, because we see Nebraska get soft, kind of go into a shell. But Michigan didn't shoot the passing lanes like other teams have. Maybe that's Nebraska taking better care of the ball, but maybe that's just Michigan not showing the aggressiveness that they needed to on the road to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, just one turnover in that first half for Nebraska certainly helps that run. Again, some of the other things that you're looking at halftime here, 20-6 as far as points in the paints for Nebraska.
One differential.
And then 10-0 on points off turnovers, which was a big one that hurt Nebraska. Yeah.
What else, Bob?
You win rebounds by 4 in the first half.
Yeah.
Even. I'm cool with that, but it's still a win.
For
Nebraska, that's a win.
10 bench points to none.
That's another differential. 3. What have I always said? If Nebraska wins 3 or more differentials, they win. Look, a lot of stuff is across the board. Is there any more that they won?
They were 6 of 14 on threes. Michigan was 4 of 11.
Not mad about that. But look, shots were even. Rebounds, pretty even. Second chance points, even. Bench points, pretty even when they ended up. Points in the paint. That's 4 differentials. You got to blow out.
Yeah.
Well, and in the first half too, you look at the assist to turnover ratio for Nebraska. I mentioned just the one turnover, 10-1 as far as assist to turnover, while Michigan
that opened the lead.
Was 4-8.
That opened the lead.
Yeah,
5. So you get 4.5. Give them 4.5 because ultimately it ended up the same. So if Nebraska, I'll continue to say this, those who are listening, sometimes you think Stricky just be talking and I just be throwing stuff out there. And what does the differentials mean? I don't mean nothing. They play harder if they do. I'm telling you, all of that adds up to either a close game, 2 differentials they win, it's going to be a game. It may be a one way or the other. They're either down by 5 or up by 5 or something along that line. They may win by 6, 7, or win by 3. You know what I mean? But if they win 3 differentials, they're usually winning the game. You can go track it.
Well, and it's fun, too, as you look through the assist numbers. Again, particularly really did well in the first half. Second half, you ended up with 9 turnovers and 18 assists, so 8-8. Didn't do as well there. But, and you mentioned it earlier, Mast with 8 assists. But I thought part of, what was kind of making Tominaga and Gary, I mean, these guys were passing the ball up, and Tominaga really using spacing, his 3-point shooting to be able to drive to the rim, draw the attention. I thought that really helped. But how about the hockey assists? The pass to the pass, the assist. We saw that several times. The ball movement for Nebraska, it looked a little bit odd because Nebraska isn't often that crisp.
What did they do also? They put bodies on people.
For the
most part. But when they did, it allowed situations like Tominaga, because here's one thing that Nebraska does on defense that they need to do to the other teams on offense. Tominaga comes off rink, puts body on the guy. His guy has to help. And as long as the guy takes to get back, you stretch him, because if that guy ever leaves, the guard is designed to turn and follow him right off, because there's no way that the defensive guy can beat you to the spot. That's what they did on multiple occasions. Stretched them out, hit Mast. Mast has a look. The next guy that comes to help, to Gary in the corner, bang, 3-ball corner pocket. That's the type of stuff they have to do more of. Now, we talked about on the defensive side, when teams start to do that to them, they stay way too long, which causes them to be at a disadvantage on the weak side. They don't have to stay as long as they do. They need to clean that up before they really get into good basketball, because teams like Creighton, teams like Wisconsin, they understand that with skips, and they'll destroy you because it's too long for a rotation to get to them.
Well, and two, I think I saw Tominaga pass an open 3-point shot in the corner, which was very strange. He did ultimately do that. But do you feel like this was one of his better games? Only made 3 threes, so it wasn't, and I know, Austin, you texted me, said the building was going crazy, which they can. But, again, he particularly started to space well for Nebraska, I thought.
The shot that started the 29-3 run for Nebraska was Casey's 3 from Nebraska's right wing. Michigan had just hit one to make it 9-7. Casey hits that one. Hand in his face.
Yeah, he's
no space. Did this. Casey was cooking. He hit a couple big ones. He did a good job, like Strick was saying, stretching it out a couple times, making the right play. Here's the thing. He's always having the time of his life. Like, he's always enjoying it. He hit a couple big shots, made a couple nice plays for other people. So, yeah, it was a high-impact game for Casey Tominaga. Took the most shots on the team, made the most shots on the team. But even though he only gets credit for 2 assists, I think his gravity and the way he stretched plays out really opened things up for Nebraska.
And we didn't talk about that the last post-game show, though. Was it Boo Booey and Ty Berry mocking Casey Tominaga in his celebration? That's one of those things. I want to see Northwestern in the tournament, in the Big Ten tournament. I just would love to see that again, because you don't get that often in the rivalry, which Nebraska has struggled with Northwestern in the past. And they also struggled with Michigan mightily since joining the Big Ten. Only one other victory over Michigan. It was a notable one. Do you guys remember which one it was?
Wagner.
There you go.
Wagner. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the 2018 victory over who ended up being the national champion runner-up.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that Nebraska team, the Death Squad lineup, as John Beilein called it, with Isaiah Roby at the 5. I don't know if they ever got enough credit for that win, because that Michigan team, I think, was like 23rd going into that game.
Well, they didn't get credit for it because they only made the NIT.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. I think, if you would have been able to see after the tournament run that Michigan ended up being the national champ runner-up, I think Nebraska would have maybe got into the tournament. Remember, they were like 4th in the Big Ten. It was crazy, like historical that they didn't to begin with. And you just kind of wonder what kind of momentum they lost doing that. But in any case, surprising. Again, it's been John Beilein. Juwan Howard's had 4 years, pretty up and down. They've done well in the tournament. But is it surprising? I guess when I look at these numbers in Nebraska, because I took a picture of it, so let me pull it up here. Was the BTN graphic of the streaks that they've knocked off now. So they had lost 11 straight to Michigan State coming into this game, 7 straight to Kansas State, 7 to Indiana, 7 to Northwestern, and 8 to Michigan coming into this game. All those coming into the season, and they've won all those games. And part of it's like, man, that's unbelievable. And then another part of it's like, oh yeah, we were winning like 9-7 games a year in the first couple of years under Coach Hoiberg. Strick, does that do something like a little bit of a historical feel? That's now 5 teams that you've really struggled against, 4 of them in Big Ten play. As you're kind of starting a season or going through a season, and you start to see a stat like that, or kind of check that off your list, does that get the team going at all, you think?
I think it's just part of the growing lessons of becoming a good team or becoming a great team. Those type of wins, they're signature to you and your character as a team. The home record is huge for you as a program, because one thing it's hard to do is to go from mediocre to just astonishingly great, unless you add like an Allen Iverson type to your program, or I'm talking about a significant type of person that literally changes the dynamic of what you have on your program. You add a Chris Webber, you add a Kevin Garnett type, a Kobe Bryant type, somebody
Carmelo Anthony, one title for Syracuse.
That type of caliber of person to your program, which can take you from mediocre to a meteoric rise in the standings. Now that's where they've grown. Now it's how do you learn to win on the road? That's the next phase. That's the next step. This is why I don't get too upset about it. It's all part of the growth and the learning process.
It's great to have those streaks snapped, but here's the thing. Indiana, get them again on the road. Go win in Assembly Hall.
Facts.
Michigan, you get them again at the Chrysler Center. Haven't won there in the Big Ten. Oh, and by the way, they have Doug McDaniel when they play at the Chrysler Center. Yeah. It's a similar team, but it's a different team. It pushes Burnett to guard number 2, where I think he's better suited. Pushes Llewellyn down a little bit, where I think he's better suited. So, yes, you snapped the streaks. It's not nothing, but you have a chance to make that emphatic by not just beating those teams, but sweeping those teams. That's going to be the real test here, is if we see that growth from Nebraska in season, to get over that hump and then not let the boulder roll back down the hill, but keep pushing it.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because I do, just kind of think about, you still hear a fan there to get frustrated with the road losses and start calling for Hoiberg's job. But I think you really got to remember a majority of this team coming back. There's, he's not anywhere on the hot seat this year. And just, you can start to look at some of those things, some of these things that they've accomplished as opposed to what they've done.
What did they do year one?
Right.
Year one was a character change. It was like, it's like you've been living on the street and you don't know anything about great. There's a movie called Trading Places. Eddie Murphy living on the street, bum. Not that that's I'm not coming. I'm just giving an example.
Right.
I'm not coming against that because we know hard times. It's hard for people and that. But this is the movie. He was a bum, and then he ends up meeting 2 wealthy guys that run an investment firm. Change his life just like that, right? So he goes from the outhouse to the penthouse overnight, right? So that's one of the hardest things because there's still a mentality change that has to happen. Nebraska had that. That was year one. Defensive minded, learning how to play together, a whole new system offense that I didn't really see because you had Bryce and there was a lot of one-on-one, a lot of McGowan's, yeah, that Bryce and Verge and those guys. But you were able last year to take a young team, mold them, get a character identification of yourself, and then become what you were hoping to become when you first got here. It happened. Now you gotta, what's next? Yeah. What's the next level? And this is what you're seeing now. Home record the way that it is. Now what's next? They're on the verge of being able to do something great. And I talked to Bach about that earlier. That's how the football team was. They're sitting on the verge of being able to do something great. Nebraska basketball is sitting right there right now. And you look at the end of their schedule, it's not crazy. You've got an opportunity to do something great.
Let's take a look at that when we get back and finish things off. We've got a lot. We still got a big segment coming, but we do have to take a quick break. Nebraska now 15-1 at home after a 79-59 victory over Michigan. We'll be back with more Hoops Postgame on 93.7 The Ticket.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is now open in Lincoln. Shop our expansive collection of wine, beer, spirits, and cigars at 5040 North 27th Street. From top-shelf liquor to crowd-favorite beer, Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits has a beverage for every taste and every budget. Plus, join our loyalty program to earn rewards and save on future purchases. Shop Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits at 5040 North 27th Street in Lincoln. That's 5040 North 27th Street.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
Stop asking your friends if they're hosting a party this Sunday and come for the real party instead. Join 93.7 The Ticket for the big game at Wings and Rings at 68th and O this Sunday and walk away with great prizes just for showing up. Why worry about making a great spread of food for the game at your house when you can enjoy all the great wings and more at Wings and Rings? It's the big game party with 93.7 The Ticket at Wings and Rings this Sunday at 68th and O.
Southeast Community College invites you to check out our spaces ahead of your official campus visit. Our virtual campus tours let you see our campuses and learn more about our programs of study. Then you can schedule your individual visit in person or virtually. Virtual tours of our campuses in Beatrice, Lincoln, or Milford, and our learning centers are online at southeast.edu/visit SCC. SCC, your path to possible.
The Omaha Supernovas are back in action this Monday, February 12th versus the Grand Rapids Rise at the Van Andel Arena in Grand Rapids. The Mullen Motors pregame show with Derek Pearson and Renee Saunders starts at 5 p.m. with first serve at 6. Make sure to tune in to the next Ag Appraisal and Realty postgame show right after the match ends. Catch all the action on your flagship station, 93.7 The Ticket, and statewide on the Supernovas Radio Network.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric is the call I make when I have a need for plumbing services. Whether it's for my home or office, if I need a repair to a water heater, softener, or even my garbage disposal, I know I can count on Action to help. In one simple call, their amazing customer service team promptly schedules a service call, often getting to my needs within a day. Action delivers honest quality services we can count on. To learn more, visit actionlincoln.com.
Get rid of pesky critters once and for all with Bats to Rats. Their expert team is here to help you reclaim your home. No more sleepless nights caused by crawling critters or flapping wings. Bats to Rats ensures a safe environment for every family member. Check the website at batstoRats.com for amazing offers. And if you mention this ad, you'll receive $10 off your initial inspection cost. Call Bats to Rats today at 402-781-8691. That's 402-781-8691. Bats to Rats.
We're back here on the Hoops postgame show on 93.7 The Ticket, brought to you by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. Thanks once again to Action for sponsoring our postgame show this year. They've been riding with us for a few years now. Nebraska with a 79-59 victory over Michigan improves to 17-8 on the season, 7-7 in conference play, and of course 7-0 at home in conference play. And again, we mentioned it briefly there, a big victory for Nebraska over Michigan in particular, because now they are 2-15 against Michigan. Their first victory over the Wolverines since 2018, and 2-15, by the way, since joining the Big Ten. Absolute big time win for Nebraska. 29-3 scoring run in the first half, led to a 45-25 first half lead. Nebraska ends up again with a 20-point win in Michigan. We talked about it briefly as well with this, is that their star player, Doug McDaniel, was not in the game. Again, he's been sitting out road games in general. Let's just go ahead and talk about what people are thinking here. Is Nebraska does have a home game coming up against Penn State, so you feel pretty good about that. But how about the return to Michigan against Doug McDaniel? We've seen Nebraska, like the Northwestern splits, obviously, home and away. Do you guys expect Nebraska by that point? That'll be the final game of the regular season for Nebraska to have figured out their road woes and feel like they've got an advantage over Michigan?
I'm in the process of pulling up Michigan's remaining schedule. So Michigan has tomorrow and Monday to get ready for Illinois. on the
got
road.
the hardest schedule, I think.
They host Michigan State, go to Northwestern, host Purdue, go to Rutgers, go to Ohio State for a rivalry, and then host Nebraska for Senior Day.
That's going to be the one that they think.
L, potential, and we'll see. Like, Michigan, I don't think is winning any of the next 4 games. Given how their season has gone, I think they will be pretty close to full-on quit mode.
Checked out.
So it's unfortunate to say. I mean, I think Juwan Howard's a pretty good coach, but things like you said have kind of backslid a little bit. I'm curious to see where that team is. But even if that's where I think Michigan's going to be, it'll be different because senior night, because McDaniel is playing. And, I mean, Michigan knows Nebraska's road record. And we talked about this with football too, Strick, right? Michigan State was ready to quit in football season.
Yeah.
They were just waiting for the end of the season, but Nebraska let them hang around and hang around and hang around and win that game. That's why I wanted to see a killer instinct from Nebraska tonight, push 30-35, push 35-40, not give up that 12-2, that 8-0 run at the end of the half. Because, yeah, you were in control. You were in cruise control. That's fine. You did what you're supposed to. You won the game. But this team needs to figure out a killer instinct, because if you let Michigan hang around like that at home with probably its best player, that might be a bad loss and leave a bad taste in the committee's mouth, maybe leave you with work to do in Indianapolis.
They've got one of the toughest schedules coming up ahead of you. Another one that's going to be pretty tough is Northwestern. They've got still a couple of tough ones. Wisconsin's probably got one similar to yours. Illinois still has a few tough ones out there. So if you want to be great, you've got a chance with the schedule that you have to run off a nice little 5 out of 7, type of run. That puts you in great category because of what's left in front of others. And if things hold true to form, meaning home teams dominate, then if you can go get a few of these on the road, you're looking very special at the end of this session when it all, pans out.
And like we said, Penn State, the next game, that'll be a week from today. You get the week off. Then you have at Indiana against Minnesota at home, who all of a sudden is actually one of the better teams in the Big Ten. At Ohio State against Rutgers at home, and then at Michigan to finish it off for Nebraska. So, Strick, here we are. Another big victory, another energy, a lot of energy in the building in Pinnacle Bank Arena. Do you have faith that this is a turning point in Nebraska, or like what is it about Pinnacle Bank Arena where Nebraska is almost unstoppable as opposed to going on the road? Is it that energy from the crowd?
No, it's take care of home. It's the messaging. It's we may struggle on the road, we may not be great on the road, but we take care of home. That's the start of having a good team. So I'm going to say they've just taken pride in being difficult, where in the past it was like kind of a nonchalantness about the approach about when teams will come in. They have an approach at home where we don't care who you are. Outside of Creighton, it just seemed like they laid down in Creighton. I don't know. They didn't have any. Creighton was just giving them the business. But Creighton had revenge on their mind because you came into their building and did them dirt, so they didn't like that. So, but I'm going to say that the key to what's left in front of them is you have to figure out how to drum up that type of fire and energy without people doing it. It's easy to get air in your tires when you have a compressor. You feel what I'm saying? It's easy when someone's pumping and priming. You got a bike but it's hard if you got the blow on that thing. Pause. When you've got to do it yourself without the help of a mechanism.
Also pause. It's
hard. Pause. You know what I'm saying? It's difficult to have to drum up that fire within you. It's got to be something in you that just, says, I'm going in here and I'm about to sit down and bump your couch and I'm stepping. You tell me to take my shoes off. I ain't taking my shoes off. I'm walking on your carpet. Like, you got to have that type of mentality on you when you go into somebody else's house. I don't care what you say, what your rules are. I'm coming in. I'm getting my milk, your milk, sitting down eating your cereal, and I'm just and then what you gonna do? I'm chomping.
Make yourself a home.
Yeah. Especially because Nebraska's going to be favored in some of these road games. I think that's even more important for this team to take that underdog mentality on the road. I think Nebraska, I don't want to say they go in too confident. They shouldn't, having not won a conference game on the road. But if you have to create bulletin board material for yourself, figure something out. Like Illinois, right? Nebraska clearly was not the favorite in that game. I think that helped. Now, I know they weren't the favorite at Northwestern as well, but I think in their minds they thought, we're even with Northwestern. This is a gettable one. They didn't come in with that same fire and that same spark until it was way too late, the last 5 minutes of the game. So we give, the best teams a lot of crap for, making up bulletin board material. But if that's what it takes for Nebraska, shoot, go get it.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys the same question. I want you to answer at the same time. I'll give you 3 seconds after I ask it, though. 17 wins into the season for Nebraska. Who is Nebraska's best player? Answer in 3, 2, 1.
Rick Mass.
PBA.
You think Rick Mass, though?
I think without Rick Mass, ultimately, I think it's like getting in your car and not having an engine. So you're basically Fred Flintstone.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll say Rink too. Bryce just has too many soft turnovers. I don't think we've seen enough of Casey on the ball to fully unlock that, and he's disappeared a couple games. Wilcher's coming off the bench. And I think those are really the only options at that point. So I think I'll say this as well. When Mast disappears, you notice it, but I think Mast has still had some sneaky under the radar box score lines, whereas when Bryce Williams is out of a game, he's out of a game.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think, because I think there's some people could come with different answers for that, but I think you're right. I think the correct answer would be Rick Mass. Again, he had another night, and it doesn't always have to be from one area or the other. It could be his rebounding, because it could be his assist numbers, could be his scoring. Tonight, it was kind of all 3 of those, 11, 8, and 6, and the 8 being assist for Rick Mass. Put on a heck of performance. Part of 4 Huskers in double figures, along with Josiah Alec, who probably had his best game as a Husker, 16 and 8. Tamanaga with 19 points. Again, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, and 13 from Bryce Williams, who kind of got going a little bit more in the second half there. 4 rebounds as well for him. How do we still?
If they get those rebounds back from Alec on a regular basis, they can be okay. They don't necessarily need him to be in double digits, but if he gets you, a good 8 to 10 a night, just off of hustle, just off of positioning, just off of putbacks, just off of if they can be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, because all the others are going to do their thing on different times. Every now and then you're going to probably have Josiah Alex show up. Depends on the matchup and the situations, because what ends up happening on scouting report on that, they're going to start looking at who had the good night, and there's what you would see. You see one of the best defenders will go on CJ. When CJ was hot, they put the best guy on him, and I'm talking about they didn't give him a sniff, right? And it's the same thing. Now watch what happens what they're going to do to Tamanaga this next game. And then this is where you're going to need somebody else to step up. It may be a Brink Mass. It may be Bryce, But that's what happens. They need to have those kind of shifts. And it needs to be those guys when the scouting report points at you, it needs to be this person that's ready to fill that gap and that void and step up, because it's going to be a little bit less on you than it is on him.
Well, and we mentioned it too. They started the big lineup today of Williams, Tamanaga, Gary, Mass, and Alec. Did you guys see? Because Gary was subbed out rather quickly for with Lawrence. Did you see? Was there any reason beyond that other than maybe to get a ball handler? Because that's the one thing. And I know they're trying to get Lawrence off the bench. He seemed to like that role. But that's the one thing with that big lineup is you don't. Not that Lawrence is playing in position naturally as your primary ball handler. But what do you guys think about the big lineup? It just that is the one kind of weak. There's weaknesses with any lineup, but that is kind of the alarming weakness, I suppose, with that
time to time for me. It just depends. It should be situational. That's the way I view it.
Yeah.
I think this was one of those situations. I understood why they did it with Northwestern, but you've got to do it with Alec with limitations.
I didn't love it, and I told Strick as much before the game. It was a lot of Josiah Alec tonight. It was a lot of Josiah Alec tonight. They did an okay job in the first half of getting him on some of those mismatches. He went at Reed a couple times. It scared the daylights out of me, but it worked out a couple times with the dunk, the reverse layup. In the second half, I think that was more what I picture from Josiah Alec, where Michigan went that matchup zone, and they got masked to Alec high-low with Burnett or Llewellyn on the bottom there. Not a fan of the big lineup in general. If you need it for spurts, it's good to have. The lineup that scared me was Lawrence, Hoiberg, Wilcher, Gary, Alec. It worked. Nebraska extended the lead, but they went to that, and it was 18-7. Like, still a game early on. Nebraska went to that lineup, and I turned to Strick and I said, "Who's getting the buckets here? Who's scoring?" Like, really, the only consistent offense in that lineup is Jamarcus turning the corner. But Nebraska, to its credit, dug in on defense. That group helped it extend the run, bought time. So it worked out in the end. So you got away with experimenting, and I think you found a couple different groups that you can throw out situations. They did really well.
They rebounded, which I was surprised of. I thought they would have gotten killed, but they actually did a rebound. There's something I noticed too, and we had talked about it. It's being on a string. What I mean by being on a string is ludicrous. I'm not saying the situation is ludicrous. It's so ludicrous. When I move, you move, just like that.
There you go.
So what ends up happening, and I saw it happen, and I talked to him before this actually happened in the game. What happens is there's such a hard front or a hard a half deny, and you get out of position as a big man because they're going from the top instead of from the low. They don't want it to be caught. They want it to be to where they catch it. They've got the low side to where that individual could be able to help on any baseline move. What happened is shot goes up, little Sam Hoiberg goes in, puts body on the big man. And I was telling him that's the type of stuff I would do. But whenever I did that, my weak side guy would always know to come get mine. If I go over there to help my guy, you come get mine. And then they got caught with an offensive rebound. I think a foul, might have been even an and one, but I know it was definitely a free throw because Tamanaga didn't move just like that. Got stuck, ball watching, weak side rebound because he didn't go help his guy. That's the stuff they got to clean up. I hope they do that in practice or they're in the film watching session. Get an understanding of that. Staying too long on double teams and helping on rebounds. That's another part.
Well, it makes it tough to play Casey in crunch time, right? You got away with it today. Like, we know Casey's not a lockdown defender. He's opportunistic. He has pretty good hands, can get some steals here and there. He'll be pesky. But because he's not the best at defense, this is where I think, Strick, you called it fake effort. Right? Jay Foreman would say, don't confuse movement with progress. Like, what's the purpose of Casey stringing that double out even further? If he's not going to pick the pocket on that next dribble, there's no point to it because then you just put your other guy in the harder position. He got away with standing in place for a rebound. And we're not asking him to out-jump 6'7" guys. We're asking him to go hit someone, get a body. Hit him with the forearm, make sure he doesn't come, turn, go get it. Like, it's not a big ask. You need Keisei Tamanaga on the floor for his offense in crunch time most times. But if he's going to stand there, get rebounded over, and not even give effort or put guys in hard positions, that might come back to bite Nebraska at the worst time.
Well, we'll see a lot of season left for Nebraska and a lot of season left for us here on the Hoops Postgame Show. Thanks again to Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical for sponsoring. Once again, a lot of season left, but we actually do have a week off with the team here before we get the Hoops Postgame Show. But you guys will be back for the block this week. No?
I'll be gone.
Are you gone?
Stricky.
Okay. Well,
yeah. It's about that time. I'm gonna miss you, Stricky. Come back soon and safe, please.
But I may, depending on how things go on the next game. We'll see. I'll definitely be watching. I might be sending y'all messages.
All right. Well, we'll keep a close eye on that. Of course, tomorrow, our big game party from Buffalo Wings and Rings. Come and join us out there. But that'll wrap it up for us tonight. We'll send you back up to CBS National Radio. Thanks for joining us. Once again, Huskers get the win, 79-59. We'll see you next week.
No matter what indoor or outdoor project is on your list, check it off at the Nebraska Building